Welcome on board Jewel, the Mainsail 618 that we have here at Berthon for sale, and Greg Weeks, who runs the refit and repair department at Berthon, is with me because not only is she for sale with us, but we've just completed a refit on the boat which makes her even funkier than she was before, and we wanted to tell you a little bit more about that. Jewel is 67 feet. She was built in Australia and she's made of aluminium. She's got this fantastic deck saloon, and she is a fractionally rigged sloop with a cutter in a stay. She's got a lovely new teak deck now, and she has a lower saloon, owner's cabin forward, watertight bulkhead, and beyond that is an enormous hold which would make an absolutely great crew area if that's what you wanted to do. Aft she has two mirror image double cabins, each with their own heads, and then there is access into an engine room which has all the services and looks a bit like an operating theatre. She's got a Yanmar 230 main prime mover, and she has a big Northern Lights generator, water maker, air conditioning, power pack for the rig and also for the hydraulic boot. So aft the platform drops down and there is room for a dinghy. She's got twin wheels, and she is of recent build from 2005 with a big rebuild in Florida in 2009. Now, Greg, let's just hear a little bit about the refit of Jewel.
Hello, Sue. The main task Berthon refit department have undertaken on Jewel is installing a completely new all-over teak deck from 12mm Moody decking system. The mast and rig have been removed to enable us to get it in the shed, and as part of that we've also carried out non-destructive testing and gone through the whole rig to make sure that it's good to go for more cruising miles. We've dropped the rudder, carried out a number of repairs there to make her completely watertight, and recoated it, and other items such as touching up paint on the in the bilges.
Now tell me, Greg, on the teak deck, what did you actually have to do? Because the teak deck was it was glued and not screwed originally, wasn't it?
The original teak deck was glued and not screwed, as is the new one. However, the way the previous deck had been fitted, it had enabled some water to get underneath, leading to some corrosion of the aluminium subdeck. So we have carried out a treatment of an anti-corrosive paint product prior to installing the new deck, which will prevent that happening in the future.
And so when you take the teak deck up, presumably there's some damage to the superstructure and the gunnels as the deck's coming up.
Yes, that's right. As you lift up the old deck, which was stuck down to the aluminium subdeck, the subdeck's painted, and it's natural that you end up pulling up certain areas of paint. So we prepare these locally and re-prime with an anti-corrosive primer, followed by a full paint system to completely seal up and enable us to glue the new deck back down on top.
And tell me, Greg, the Moody teak decking system, you don't sort of go up there with bits of wood and put them down. It arrives in a piece, doesn't it? How does that work?
That's right. The Moody decking system, it's perfect for this sort of installation. We simply template the deck, send the templates over to them, and in their enormous workspace, they set up their special jigs to make the deck, and it always fits perfectly when it arrives. And in doing that, we can control the thickness of the planks, and all of the seams are done in controlled environment, ready just to bond the whole panel down in one go.
So that should mean that you're not going to get leakage between the deck and the subdeck in the future?
Yes, that means that there's less opportunity for water to get down in between the teak and underneath.
And so all the deck fittings come off, and then I guess you've planned it all out and you put them down, so hopefully they're all in the same place as they were before.
That's right, we remove all of the fittings and where necessary carry out anti-corrosive protection underneath the fittings. We map out where each one goes, so we make sure it goes back down in the same place. Some of it's pretty obvious, but sometimes not so much. Then on refitting, once the new deck's down, we have to drill through and refit all of the original fittings in their same locations.
And now that she's got this funky new deck, which does look cool, and we'll take some shots of that later, what would you recommend a new owner does to keep it in that shape?
To keep it in that in that good condition. It's important to keep the deck clean. Treat it with anti-fungicide solution. A product called Boracle is one that we use fairly regularly. It's usually good not to scrub a deck too much, although a couple of times a year give it a good scrub so you don't wear it down too much. And otherwise, just keep it well cleaned and never pressure wash.
And also, you've redone the exterior varnish work, apart from the tow rail, which we've left bare. So I guess that a new owner can ask you to varnish it, or it can just be left bare. Yeah. If we do that, you just scrub it, do you?
It gives two options. You can keep it maintained. The teak will silver, as will the deck, when it's been out in the weather for a bit longer, and that will be perfectly well protected, teak being an oily wood, to be left as it is, and then it can just be kept clean and treated in the same way as the deck itself. Alternatively, some customers like to have a varnished capping rail, and we can easily do that by reapplying 6-7 coats of varnish onto the bare wood that we've already gone back to, and it gives them the preference of their choice when they buy it.
Okay, fine. And the rig is now next door to Jewel, and when the storms and everything of the winter go through, we'll reunite her with it. But when it came down on the ground, I know it's been polished and cleaned, and of course it's rod. Last check 2009. So I think we've done some work to that to make sure that it's good to go again.
That's right. We basically undressed the mast completely, and we've checked all of the rod rigging, the heads and fixings. We've also replaced one section which failed the non-destructive testing, and that was the D4. So that'll be replaced prior to re-stepping the mast when all the winds subside.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. And the other thing we had a bit of a problem with is underneath Jewel, you'll see she's got this massive encapsulated fin keel. Very, very powerful boat. She draws 3 metres. And then she's got this great protected skeg rudder, and you had to take the rudder off. What was the problem there?
So the problem was that the rudder had taken on some water. What we did, we dropped the rudder, we blasted all the original coatings from it and set it up in the shed to drain out all the water, and then allowed it with a bit of warmth to dry out completely. We then completely resealed the rudder and plugged up the holes that we had made, and then brought forward the coatings to make it a nice watertight rudder that hopefully won't take on water again in the future.
Okay, fine, and I think we've done some corrosion control in the bilges and other bits and pieces. I mean, the boat's now looking very good.
The boat looks fantastic. There's just small areas around the galley where water collected at the bottom of the mast step, leading to some corrosion, but this has all been dealt with now, taken back to bare aluminium and recoated using 2-pack epoxy systems.
Okay. Now the thing about Jewel is, because of her layout, she's great for family cruising, and it's a little bit unusual to have the owner's cabin forward, but because she carries her beam quite far forward, it's absolutely enormous, and it's got a desk and a great heads. And aft, you've got these 2 great cabins, either for family or for other guests. But it does mean that if you wanted to use her with crew, she's a little bit short on accommodation. Now, I mentioned earlier, she's got this great big lazarette forward, the watertight bulkhead, and it's absolutely huge down there. And although it's great for keeping sails in and so on, do you think it would be feasible to actually put a couple of bunks, head compartment, and make an area for crew there?
Absolutely. At the moment, it's got a couple of drop-down pipe cot type units, which are similar size to the bunks that you would use for crew accommodation. That indicates the size of this space. Although it's a watertight bulkhead, there's no reason why you can open up the area to be used for crew accommodation, which would be accessed through the foredeck, and run services through to install the heads or similar if deemed necessary.
Okay, and as far as extra beds, as it were, on the boat is concerned, where we're sitting on the upper saloon, this fantastic table, it gets smaller, it comes to this size, it also comes down, and there's a big cushion that goes in here, and just where I'm pointing to is a huge flat screen TV. So if you are a family and you want to watch a movie, it's just a great place to be on a really nasty afternoon, or when it's very, very hot in the Mediterranean when you've got the air conditioning going. And in the lower saloon, you've got the same sort of arrangement. So if you've got lots of young and lots of family on board the boat, you do have the option of 2 other double beds, but that's very much for when you're sailing with family. Jewel is now in really fantastic shape, looks the business, and the owners are keen to sell her. Therefore, they've instructed us that despite having made this big investment in Jewel, the price is not going to go up, and so she's asking £695,000 plus VAT, which doesn't seem an enormous sum for an enormous and very, very beautiful yacht with a brand new teak deck, rig sorted, all the services, good to go.